a group of astronauts gain superpowers after a cosmic radiation exposure and must use them to oppose the plans of their enemy, Dr. Victor Von Doom.
This is Ryan.
And this is Ashley.
And this is
Ruining Our Childhood,
a weekly podcast where we remove our childhood goggles and put on our adult bifocals to rewatch and review our favorite movies from the past.
That is what we do on this podcast.
Yes.
So,
episode 46?
no, bro.
No. 47?
Yeah.
Oh. Nah, bro. You were off by one.
Well, you're off by one. You should be ashamed.
It is my favorite podcast. I should know what episode they're on.
Your own podcast is your favorite
Damn
podcast?
straight. It's the best one out there.
Is it?
I'm biased, but I think it's top notch.
You are biased.
So hello, welcome.
Hi. It's Ashley.
It's Ryan.
And this is Ruining Our Childhood.
Yeah.
Where we actively ruin all of our childhoods.
And in this case, it's going to be ruining Ryan's 20s, because I was 20 when this movie came out.
Yes. This week we're doing the 2005 classic Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I thought this movie came out when I was in high school.
Oh.
I was already living in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
I have vivid memories of watching it in my childhood living room, and apparently I made it up.
You made that all up.
Because we weren't living there.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even know who I saw this with. Probably my dad. I didn't have friends. In July 2005, I'd only been living here a couple months.
Yeah.
I'd only had a job for maybe a month. Oh, no. I went to Montana in July, but I don't think we watched this. I might have watched it with my brother then. Shocker.
So you did not see it in theaters then, right?
I did see it in theaters.
Okay.
I'm like 99% sure. I assume it was with my dad because I literally had no friends
Oh, wow.
when I first moved here. Are you saying, oh, wow, like you're surprised?
No. I can understand that. When you're new to a place and
And you're 18 and
Yeah.
you have no social skills?
social skills.
Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan. Shout out to Danny. I saw it in theaters, but I don't remember with who. I would assume it was my brothers and some friends.
Yeah. I honestly don't know.
And I also don't think I ever saw it after I saw it in theaters.
Oh, really?
I think I just saw it one time.
I think we rented it. I think my dad bought it.
Oh, okay.
My dad was really into buying DVDs
He has,
back in the day.
Yeah, he had quite the collection.
Yeah.
Still probably has quite the collection.
Yes.
But I feel like this is when superhero movies were incredibly hit and miss.
We've talked about it before. If you've heard our Spider-Man episode, we kind of talked about how in the early 2000s, late 90s, we did have some superhero movies, but it wasn't to the same caliber as we have now with MCU
Yeah.
and some decent DC films.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that because Batman has always been decent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You're right. It's very hit and miss.
I feel like
now that we think about it.
Yeah, when you look back on it, Marvel, I felt like outside of Spider-Man was a lot of miss at this time period. They had Daredevil and Elektra and Punisher. I hate to say this, probably this one. And now it seems like everything they make is a hit.
Yeah.
For the most part. So it's kind of... Whereas I feel like they've almost swapped. And DC has become this hit or miss. Wonder Woman, great. Some of the other DC properties, not so great.
Right.
So
that's very true. So 2005, we kind of established I was a loner, just moving to Arizona. You were, I don't know, a douchebag.
Thanks. I was 20.
Yeah. Give us some 2005 facts real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about it.
Okay.
We're just going out of order.
So this movie was released on July 8th of 2005, It had a budget of $100 million, and it grossed $333.5 million, and it spawned one sequel, which was Rise of Silver Surfer.
Yes, that sounds right.
The number one song for the week the movie came out was...
You don't know?
Sorry, I had to find it on the little list here. The number one song was Carrie Underwood, Inside Your Heaven. I don't know that I know that song.
Yeah.
Some popular songs were Kanye West featuring Jamie Foxx, Gold Digger, and Chris Brown, Run It. Number one movie for the year was Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. A couple other popular movies were War of the Worlds and King Kong. And popular TV shows were American Idol, CSI, and Desperate Housewives.
Okay. Have we done a 2005 movie before? I feel like we haven't.
I don't know, because I feel like I've read some of the more popular movies, but I also can't think of what we would have done.
I'm sure. I mean, it's not like we can't just look it up right now.
Touché.
But yeah, so we kind of just talked about our experiences, so I don't know if you want to just go straight to, do you think this will hold up? Or did you want to discuss anything else?
No, I agree with you. I think we can move on, and I'm going to say it's not going to hold up, and I'm going off the standpoint that I don't know that I ever saw it again after I saw it in theaters, and I feel like if I had enjoyed it, I would have made a point to get it on DVD and watch it again.
That's good logic.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it a couple times, and again, so starved for superhero movies, I accepted it, and also Chris Evans.
Seeing that was my thing, was not so much Chris Evans, but hello, Jessica Alba was in it, and I had a big crush on Jessica Alba. That was good casting.
Well, I guess Jessica Alba playing an otherwise white character is something to... I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
So we both agree that this movie is not going to hold up. I don't know if I actually said that.
Yeah.
I kind of shook my head when you were like, I don't think it's going to hold up.
I kind of wonder if, in hindsight, they had plans to make this a trilogy or something, and then the second one didn't do so well, because I know we got a reboot of it
a
few years ago, and that went poorly.
Which was sad, because I think it had a pretty solid cast.
Yeah.
But you can't just rely on the cast for a good movie.
No. Oh, definitely not.
It has to be an actual good movie.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, especially now, like if you stray too far away from the material, then there's going to be a lot of people that are upset about that.
I was just thinking also, it was interesting. We talked about how we didn't get a lot of superhero movies back then. It's interesting the properties that they chose to give us.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get Iron Man, which was a bigger superhero, until 2008. And they gave us stuff like this and Daredevil and stuff that I don't know were hugely well known. I mean, Fantastic Four is a well-known property.
I was going to say
they're not nobodies.
Yeah, that's one of the comic books that I liked as a character.
Mm-hmm.
So we both think it's not going to hold up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So the next part would be, where can you stream this if you don't own it?
Yeah.
I don't think we own it.
Mm-mm.
But luckily you can stream it on Starz. So, but it also just says Starz Amazon. So I don't know if we have to have Starz under Amazon or if we can just have Starz.
It would make sense that you would just need Starz and
right?
not have an add-on to your Amazon Prime.
That's true. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. We're going to roll the dice.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to rent it, which you can rent on all of the streaming apps that you can think of. So,
yeah.
This movie is available. I love the movie. I feel like now most movies are available to rent at least, but there was a time when streaming services were just starting and there was titles I couldn't find.
Yeah.
And it's annoying because you're like, I just want to watch this movie.
And the services back then, and when we were referring to a few years ago, I felt like Netflix was really limited. Hulu had the crappiest movie selection, where I feel like all these ones have a ton of movies now. And then, like you said, if you can't find it, guess what? You can rent it for $3, which is awesome because we don't have video stores anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
We still have red boxes.
Yes, which those are hit and miss too.
Yeah.
They have like the most recent, and that's about it.
And their prices are going up so much to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'll rent it for $2.99. I don't have to leave my house.
Yeah. I'm going to sit on my couch.
If I don't have to leave my house, then I don't want to do it.
No.
That doesn't make any sense. That's not what I was trying to say. If I don't have to leave my house to do something, I would choose not to leave my house versus going out into the world.
I'm all for giving minimum effort.
Yes. No pants.
Completely out of context. It's just you saying the words, no pants.
No pants. Like
Cut off sleeves.
I'm wearing pants right now, by the way.
Mismatched socks. I'm just saying random things that go with clothing.
That are clothing?
Yeah. The we're post for the episode, I want the first two words to be no pants.
No pants.
Yes.
So anyway, we're going to go ahead and hit that
Pausey pause.
and go watch Fantastic Four. Come back and we'll talk about it because that's what we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay, and we just finished watching Fantastic Four, and now we're going to go ahead and break down our movie with our categories, like we always do. And our first category is, well, hello there, where we talk about any cameos or famous or recognizable actors or actresses that were in the movie that we forgot about. And I totally flubbed that, but what can you do? Who did you notice?
Well, I guess we can just go over the main cast first, just in case there's anybody that doesn't know who's in the main Fantastic Four cast.
Yeah.
The first person, we mentioned him in the beginning, is Chris Evans as Johnny Storm.
Also Human Torch.
Yeah.
That's
but in this first movie, they don't really have their names.
That's true. He kind of gives them the names at one point, but yeah, they don't go around calling each other like, hey, Human Torch. Like, no, they call him Johnny the whole movie.
It is technically an origin story, so.
And boy, is it a good one. His sister is Sue Storm, and she is played by superstar actress Jessica Alba.
Yes.
And yeah, she's been in some things.
Yeah. And she owns a company now.
Yeah, she's like a billionaire, right?
Yeah. I mean, she was probably a billionaire before the company, just because she's been in a lot of movies. But yeah, now she owns the Honest company.
Honest, yeah, which I know is a huge baby brand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next one is Michael Chiklis. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah, Chiklis.
Okay. I don't know why I questioned that. He plays Ben Grimm, or technically The Thing.
And he was, the big thing I remember him from was The Shield.
Yeah.
Which was like probably FX's first huge, like, mainstream successful show. Yeah, it was like that and Rescue Me back in the day. And Nip Tuck, which I guess we'll go ahead and transition into one of the next people, which is Julian McMahon, who played Victor Von Doom.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Doom, and he was on Nip Tuck back in the day.
And he was also in Charmed. Mm-hmm. He played... Why can't I remember his name?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my god. Balthazar was his demon name.
I'm looking him up.
You're going to say it, and I'm going to just be so mad.
He played Cole Turner.
Yes, Cole Turner.
And it looks like he's currently on the show called FBI Most Wanted, which is a show on CBS.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was trying to remember what was the last thing I saw him in. Whatever it was recently, and he didn't age very well.
The Runaways.
Yes, he played the bad guy in The Runaways.
Yeah, and it's not so much that I think he didn't age well. I felt like he was still dyeing his hair and his eyebrows he was dyeing, but the gray was still coming through a lot.
Yeah.
So he looked kind of weird.
But I know, like, if anybody's ever seen The Runaways, he plays technically an alien, I guess, where he does age quite frequently, and then he has to be in, like, a chamber. I don't know, it's confusing. Yeah. It's a Marvel show. Of course, it's sciencey and confusing. Somewhat like this movie.
It does look like his show just premiered in January.
Oh, okay.
So he's still hanging in there doing stuff. Who was the next one that you had?
Reed Richards is the character's name.
Yes.
It's, I don't know how to say his name.
I felt like you skipped him and went to Chickless because you were trying to make me have to say this guy's name. It's like Ion Gruffo.
He's Welsh.
Gruff.
It's like
Grufford?
It's like Ewan Rion from like Ramsay from
Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But it's Eon, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how to say it. It's probably like Ian.
Yeah.
And
we're making it more difficult than it needs to be.
But Gruffend, he's been in a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm. He had that show with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Ringer.
Ringer, yeah. And he played Mr. Fantastic, basically, Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying in the Ringer.
Yeah.
I was like,
Is he?
I don't think that's what that show is about.
Oh, God.
The next person I noticed, wow. The next person I noticed was Hamish Linklater.
Mm-hmm.
He plays Leonard, which is basically like Victor Von Doom's bitch.
Yeah. And shout out with this. Shut up, Leonard.
Yeah.
And that's from Community.
Yeah. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but I know him from The Newsroom.
Yeah.
I think that was the first thing I thought of.
And I looked him up. It was he was on like 88 episodes of The New Adventures of Old Christine with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
he's been in some things.
He was in a movie recently too. I can't remember.
Oh, and he was on Legion, that show
okay.
that had April Ludgate. I can't think of her name.
Plaza.
Thank you. And I pointed behind us because we have an April Ludgate pop figure on a shelf. So I'm like, yeah, back there.
April Ludgate. And Dan Stevens. Plays the lead in that show.
Yes. I was like, Dan Stevens was in this movie? What movie did you watch?
No. What was your next one?
My next one was Maria Menounos. Is she on Extra or Entertainment Tonight or one of those news magazines? But she played someone credited as Sexy Nurse.
Yes.
Which is weird because she had more than one scene.
Yes.
And she had more than one line.
Right.
And they couldn't credit her with Susan or Jennifer the nurse. It was Sexy Nurse.
Right. That is correct.
Excellent writing.
I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
The next one I had was Laurie Holden.
Yes.
Who plays Debbie, who is Ben's fiance.
Mm-hmm.
And she, to me, is most known for being Andrea on the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I know she's been in a bunch of other stuff, but that's what I recognized her from. So I was a little surprised to see her. It was like a nice little,
oh, hey, you're here. The next one I had was Kerry Washington.
Yes, that was another one.
Yeah, that was a person I definitely forgot was in this movie.
I forgot that he meets somebody else that's accepting.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah.
Because his Laurie Holden was not accepting. She bailed quick.
Yeah, we'll talk about it because I got some notes on that.
I just want to point out I have 6 pages of notes on this movie, so...
I just want to point out that I think I might have the most plot holes I've ever listed.
Oh, I have 10.
Okay.
Remember those movies like 2 months ago when you'd be like, do you have any plot holes? And I would go, not really. And you would go, what movie did you watch? Guess what? We watched the same movie and we got a ton of them.
Yeah. Ooh, that's going to be a long talk, guys.
So, Kerry Washington, she plays Alicia. And she was obviously Olivia Pope on Scandal. And I know she has a new show that starts up, I think, this next month with
Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, Reese Witherspoon.
Little Fires Everywhere, I think. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, she's a fantastic actress.
Yeah.
I love Kerry Washington.
I agree.
Yeah.
I guess we can also mention there was a little LFH in here.
I like how you called it LFH. Cousin of LFO. The 1990s boy band. No. Maybe he transported him around town.
Oh, maybe. Low Flying Helicopter for anybody this is your first episode.
Yes.
In this one, it wasn't misused,
No.
really.
No, it
but
really wasn't.
it was just an extreme skiing. That's what it said on the side of it. It was literally just flying over a mountain so that Johnny and Sexy Nurse could go skiing / snowboarding. And just a
it
quick
wasn't,
little cameo.
Yeah, it wasn't him flying trying to find Doctor Doom or anything like that, like we usually see in these amazing action movies. So, and then the last one that I had is the person that makes a cameo in every Marvel movie.
Yes.
And sadly, we won't get those anymore. Stan Lee played a mailman.
Yeah.
So
those are always a nice little like surprise. Or,
yeah.
You know, when you, for so many years, you're like, I wonder what he's going to be doing.
Exactly. You're like, how are they going to incorporate him in this? And yeah.
I wonder how many mailmen he's played.
Yeah, because he played a couple. When he played one in Iron Man 2, I think, or Iron Man 1. He's delivering a package, and he's like, a package for Tony Stank?
Oh, no, that's, it was after Civil War because they're in the compound, the Avengers compound already, and he's helping, why can't I think of his name? Don Cheadle. He's
War Machine?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Brody.
He's helping him walk.
Oh,
because,
okay.
Remember, he got...
Yeah.
So...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. In case you haven't
But
seen
you really
Civil War.
didn't give a spoiler because you were just like, and I was like, yeah.
Like,
yeah, we
don't
know.
want to spoil this Marvel movie that's like 4 years old.
Just so we're clear. Yeah.
At least we kept on track with the same kind of movie.
Yeah.
Back to this Marvel train wreck.
No. This is an amazing film. Don't give
Okay.
anything away.
Okay. Do you want to move on?
Yes.
The next category is called Kids Would Call It a Throwback. We call it the Prime of Our Teens category, where we talk about fashion and offensive jokes or dated references, which I now realize I don't have any.
Oh, I only had 2 dated references. I didn't have any offensive jokes.
Okay.
So that'll be a fun category.
What about fashion?
There was some interesting mid-2000 choices.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was we talked about Chris Evans as Johnny, and he wears some interesting jackets. One of his main choices is a black motorcycle jacket that just kind of looks weird on him because it's somehow a little baggy, I feel like, which is interesting because those are usually a little more form-fitting. And you mentioned earlier you thought Chris Evans probably wasn't as buff. Turns out he walks around half naked, still buff as hell. So how is this jacket kind of big on him?
Not as buff as Captain America, but still not complaining.
Yeah. So he wears that jacket, and then at one point towards the end, he's wearing like a magenta blazer. I'm like,
Sure.
interesting choices, sir.
Yeah, I did notice in one scene he was wearing really baggy jeans, and I feel like we've gone into more of a form-fitted that looks a little nicer.
Yeah.
Especially if you're got a rockin' bod like Chris Evans.
As we know, he has America's ass.
Yeah, he does.
You gotta...
But you can't tell him those baggy ass jeans.
You're supposed to flaunt that, bruh. He had ridiculous sideburns.
He did, yeah.
They were obnoxiously long.
He did look like a little baby, too.
He did. It'd be interesting to go back and watch like some press junkets from this and see if anybody asked him if he still believed in Santa Claus. It just looks like a little baby.
Dumb.
Dumb.
I put it in this one just because I didn't really know where else to put it, but Jessica Alba's contact lenses were really distracting.
Yeah.
And her eyes didn't even look blue.
No.
They were definitely supposed to be. They just kind of looked dark.
I felt like that, and then also I felt they put a lot of lightning makeup on her.
Yeah.
To make her
whiter. Yeah.
And
like, I get it. I think part of me was like, I understand that they were probably worried that some comic book fans would be like, well, Sue Storm's a blonde, blue-eyed woman, and Jessica Alba's the opposite of that almost.
Yeah.
And so I see it, but I also feel like now they should have just let her have brown eyes, and it seemed less distracting to me.
I know we didn't see the reboot, but did they make Kate Mara dye her hair blonde?
I don't know.
I don't think they did.
They might have.
They might have? Okay.
I mean, she's white, so I'm sure it looks fine.
Racist!
What?
I'm sure it looked fine.
Well, she's very fair-skinned, so I'm saying she could pull off the blonde hair without it looking unnatural, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah.
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 Did you have anything else?
I did like, it wasn't so much a fashion, like I looked at the clothes and went, oh my God, that looks terribly dated. But when Ben, he's turned into the thing, he looks like a rock creature, and he goes back to go find his fiancée, Debbie.
Yeah.
And he calls her from outside on a payphone, and he's like, I'm outside. So she runs outside in a nightgown.
Yes.
Which I thought was very weird. I'm like, you had time. You could have put pants on.
Yeah.
And a shirt.
Or like a sweater. I don't know.
Maybe a hoodie.
It's a crowded city street. Your apartment's on.
Yeah. No, she ran outside in like her nicest nightgown.
Yeah. I think that's something, and this is just coming from a female perspective, that a lot of movies did, and I feel like they don't do it as bad anymore, is letting women just run around in the least amount of clothing as possible just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
When any realistic woman would be like, no, I would put on a jacket in that situation.
Yeah. If my fiance called me from outside and said, hey, I'm outside, come meet me, I'm not going, I probably shouldn't put on pants.
I do like that he walked around with looking like he was a detective.
He had a trench coat and a fedora.
Fedora.
Yeah.
First of all, how did you find a fedora that big?
Yeah.
Let alone the trench coat.
Later in the movie, Michael Chiklis is a good-sized guy. Nobody's going to look at him and go, that's a tiny man.
I feel like he's short in real life, though.
But he's
like
a
stocky,
thicker guy. Yeah, he's stocky. So he managed to find a trench coat that when he gets converted back to normal was a dress on him.
Yeah.
So how big was that trench coat?
They went to the Big and Tall store, or I will say Victor probably had somebody from his compound go to the Big and Tall store and get the biggest size you can get.
Just, we want the 17X, please.
Yes. The only other thing I really noticed was at one point Jessica Alba's wearing a bucket hat that's light blue. And I was just thinking, this is 2005, and I don't remember bucket hats still being a thing.
Bucket hats were like 99.
Yeah.
Not 2005.
It was like the light blue color, though, was very mid-aughts.
Yeah. My last one was after what happens is they go into outer space and get hit with radiation and they get these superpowers. And they're at, is it a hospital when they come back down?
It's like Victor's compound.
Yeah. They're monitoring them
to
make sure everyone's okay. And Reed is walking around in a Von Doom polo shirt, which he looks like your neighborhood-friendly DirecTV service guy that's going to come hook up your cable. You're like, what are you wearing?
Well, they probably didn't have a lot of clothes and they were staying there for a while. So,
but Chris Evans is rocking like cool motocross and stuff.
That's true.
So it's just interesting.
Maybe Johnny is an overpacker and Ben is not.
Johnny's good friends with my wife when it comes to overpacking, am I right?
I am not that bad.
You've gotten better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on?
Yes.
Or did you have offensive jokes or dated references?
I had just one dated reference, really, and that's they mentioned Larry King canceled his interview with Victor Von Doom.
Oh, yeah.
And Larry King's kind of still a thing, but he doesn't have like a show on CNN anymore.
That's true.
And then just some dated stuff was the furnishings everywhere were ultra modern, so they don't age well. That's it.
Like the board. It's another thing where either I missed it or they never explained it, but the board, like Victor's board, I don't know if they were a board or if they were a bank he was borrowing money from, because at one point they say something about the bank not being able to give him money anymore. But that room was super dated. It had concrete walls, these huge, really fake
ficus.
Yeah, ficus. And the biggest leather chairs of all time. around this tiny little table.
It was like, we want you to know these are evil Legion of Doom-esque members without calling them the Legion of Doom.
Right.
But yeah, they were like shareholders, I guess, kind of. But yeah, like board members. They do not explain.
No. Why? Why would you explain?
No.
No need to explain.
Unnecessary.
Did you have anything else?
I did not. We're going to move on to our next category, and we're going to go ahead and call our fiance from a payphone and talk about some technology. What pieces did you notice?
I didn't really... Well, okay. Well, there's a lot of, like, science-y, technology, made-up stuff going on, especially in Reed's lab.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's that. But a lot of the special effects did not age well.
I felt specifically the stuff with Reed when he turns into Mr. Fantastic and he can stretch out.
Yeah.
It looks very bad.
Yeah,
but
for
then
sure.
The stuff with Chris Evans on fire, I felt looked okay.
Maybe fire CGI is a little more forgiving.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, but definitely the stretching looked very, very animated.
Mm-hmm.
And the invisibility didn't look bad.
No.
Go figure.
When it looked bad to me was there's the scene where they're on the bridge and of course she's going to take her clothes off, so the clothes aren't just floating there, and she's standing there in her bra and underwear. But that part there, when she's normal, obviously she's just standing there in her underwear, but when she turns into invisible, it looked really bad.
I think it looked bad because you could see it, but I think they wanted you to be able to see her.
Yeah.
Like an outline of her, so you knew where she was going at times. I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's the only thing I really noticed was just the animation. Or the animation that Reed uses for his presentation for Victor in the very beginning was pretty...
The holograms?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were not good.
Yeah.
You could tell it was just, this is bad CGI, folks.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned his lab, and I kind of thought back to Spider-Man, where William Dafoe's character has these, it's supposed to be top of the line equipment, but it still all looks like 1960s Soviet Union Cold War equipment.
I'm just comparing this. Of course, we're going to compare it to all of the Marvel movies that have come out the last 15 years since this movie came out. And I feel like this movie, it definitely, his apartment, his whole lab, it looked like a movie set.
Yeah.
It didn't look like something that was real. And compared to what they do now in other Marvel movies where, yeah, I mean, they're using stuff that doesn't technically exist. Or I guess nowadays a lot of the stuff does exist, but it looks real and it looks sleek. And I don't know if maybe in 15 years some stuff from the first Iron Man's going to look cheesy, but...
This is definitely stuff that did not age
well.
It all looks pretty cheesy. On the soundtrack, there was some interesting bands of the time, I will call them. One of the songs that I noticed was Lloyd Banks' On Fire.
Oh, okay.
Which was that rap song when Chris Evans shows up at the X Games.
Sure.
And so that kind of dated it. And he was in 50 Cent's G-Unit.
Oh, yeah.
And then also I caught a Velvet Revolver song.
Oh, okay.
Because I recognized Scott Weiland. And I was like, this is a weird song. Turns out it was Velvet Revolver. And the last one was there was an Alter Bridge song.
Yes.
The Creed Replacement Band.
Eek. That's all I can say.
The great music from 2005.
Choices were made.
Choices were made.
I feel like Chris Evans' character would be the type to listen to Velvet Revolver. He dressed like your basic 2005 douchebag who's really into extreme sports.
Yep. Guy's like, dude, the X Games are this weekend. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on, brah.
Good times. Do you want to move on?
Yes.
This next category is called Is It Even Good? Where we talk about the plot holes, which we'll be here for a while, guys. we name our funniest and cringiest moments of the movie. And yeah, there's quite a bit to discuss. So the plot, it's a comic book movie. Obviously, it's not going to be believable. But do you think it was believable?
I think we were watching the first 30 minutes of the movie, and we both looked at each other and we were confused as to what was going on.
Yes.
Did they explain why they're going into outer space?
Yeah.
We had genuine confusion because also, you mentioned earlier, it's an origin movie, and they rush the living shit out of the origin of them. Because I would say within 5 to 10 minutes, they've gone into outer space, got slapped with radiation, and now they all have superpowers.
Right.
10 minutes of an hour and 45-minute movie is them actually acquiring it.
Yeah, that's true. I think I missed his explanation, or maybe I just kind of zoned out when he was talking about how he wanted to do something with DNA up in space and whatever. And I think it's kind of a thing people point out in Marvel movies, that a lot of times they just throw a bunch of random science-y jargon at you and you're like, okay. Yeah. But I think for the most part, most movies, you can at least follow along to what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't understand everything, but you're like, oh, okay, they're doing this for this reason. I feel like in this one, it didn't really... I was confused.
And
why would you work with somebody named Victor Von Doom? I'm sorry.
You're just profiling now.
Yeah, no, I am. If his last name is Doom, he's probably a villain.
You know what? We grew up next to a family called the Verdooms, and they were lovely, lovely people. Okay? Stephen Verdoom. No.
I was like, is that real?
No.
I was so confused.
You just go ahead and judge him because of his last name. He can't pick it. That's a family name.
Okay, well, as long as he didn't become a scientist, we're fine.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, that's an interesting name choice. I feel like you said, they pick science-y terms, but at this one, at least they hit you with, it's radiation they get hit with.
That's
true.
What
radiation is.
That's true.
And it's not some off-the-wall term, but it still was a little convoluted and hard to follow.
But even at one point, they're on the compound, they're being tested to make sure everything's okay. And Ben turns to Reed and goes, what happened up there? And Reed's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know either. You're supposed to know. You guys are supposed to know. You're the scientists.
If you don't know, how am I supposed to know?
The movie is self-aware.
God.
What about, okay, let's get into these plot holes.
Oh boy.
Let's get digging.
I got my shovel. I got a spade. We're going to dig away. I mentioned how they rush everything. At the beginning of the movie, Reed goes and asks Victor to help him finance going into outer space. They show, all of a sudden, they're in outer space.
With this state-of-the-art.
Yeah. What happened?
Spaceship.
How did we get here?
Yeah.
No launch preparation? Nothing. Boom, they're up.
No training?
Nothing.
My biggest plot hole is I have a hard time believing that Johnny Storm somehow made it to NASA.
Yes.
He's not the brightest bulb.
You said he's basically a mid-2000s douchebag.
Yes.
Somehow got through NASA.
Well, got kicked out.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't kick him out? At one point, Johnny says that Victor has more money than God.
I didn't know God was so rich.
I did not either. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Interesting. I thought it was strange, but again, not complaining, that Johnny opted out of not putting clothes on when he got back from the skiing incident where he did flame up, or does he say flame on? That's his catchphrase. I don't know.
Yeah, I think flame on.
And
which is just so stupid.
Oh, I'm sure there's somebody listening to this like, that's just the comic book.
Yeah, he says flame on.
Jerk. Yeah, so he has that incident skiing. It's super cheesy, but he's walking around the compound in sexy nurse's coat.
Yes.
And
For
you have
about
time to get clothes on while they go check on Ben.
for about 5 minutes of screen time. He's just walking around holding that up. So-
Again, not complaining, but just saying.
And I thought it was funnier that prior to that, sexy nurse goes over to check his vitals, shoves a thermometer in his mouth, but there was a screen that tracked his temperature.
Yeah.
So why are you doing this? And
It's connected. The thermometer is connected. I don't know. I don't-
his temperature's 209 degrees.
And she doesn't think of... She's the worst nurse in the world.
It's like, well, you know what we should do? Let's go skiing.
Yeah. And when he flames up and makes a hot tub, basically, she's like, cool, I'll get in. No questions asked.
No. Well, can you blame her?
I mean...
I'd get in when a hot tub with a guy. I'm like, hello there.
What? You'd get in a hot tub with a guy?
With Chris Evans?
Okay.
He's a good-looking man.
You just said a guy. So any guy will do.
Any guy.
Good to know, Ryan. Good to know. I think we talked about Debbie walking into a busy street with her nightgown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess one of the, a legit plot hole is during the bridge scene.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, they're all talking to the press, and a reporter asks Johnny, can you really fly? And I'm going, how does she know that? First of all, they just became public in the last, half an hour.
Yes.
So how do you know he can possibly fly when he's only ever done it once, and it was an incident? And is sexy nurse just going around to the media already, talking about Johnny over here, flying and flaming up?
Flaming up? That whole scene, at one point, something kind of explodes, and a fireball goes flying by, and he just wraps his arm around this little girl.
And he can shield her.
But wouldn't he still burn her?
I don't know, right?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, he would have...
There's a lot of questions.
A lot of...
that we don't get answers to. If we can continue on with the questionable, sometimes their powers work in a certain way, sometimes they don't, is Ben whole strength.
Yeah.
And at one point he's walking into a bar and you can hear steps really loud and it sounds like a earthquake.
Yeah, and the pool table is bouncing.
But when he walks in other places, it doesn't make a sound.
What else was stupid is he walks by tables and they're not moving. The drinks aren't moving.
Yeah.
Nothing's moving, but the pool table's going out of control.
And the record player's skipping.
Yeah. And then he goes into a diner and he sits in a booth. And the booth's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
He would have crushed it.
And then at the end of the movie, he gets thrown into a car.
Yeah.
And the window smashes, but the car doesn't get dented at all.
I was going to say, barely scratched it.
Yeah.
But on the bridge, a semi-truck gets decimated when it hits him.
Yes. I feel like they made this movie going, nobody will notice. And I know people notice because you can't make a comic book movie without people ripping it to shreds.
I was going to say, comic book nerds, I'm sure, had a field day with this movie.
I'm sure.
At one point, Sue mentions that Johnny can reach temperatures that approach the temperature of the sun.
Yes.
And to quote Dr. Evil, right. No.
You don't know that. Well, it's not realistic. None of this is realistic, Ryan.
It's a plot hole.
It's not really a plot hole.
I'm saying it's a plot hole.
My plot hole is if Ben goes into a car and it should smash up because it's smashed up in various other ways. Mm-hmm. Yours is just he can't have those powers because that's not realistic. Well,
I'm just thinking
I don't think anybody's going to get invisibility, too.
I'm thinking if he was literally approaching the temperature of the sun, anything around him would be melted.
That would be the plot hole.
Okay.
Not that he can't.
I'm not saying he can't. He could, I guess. So I shouldn't have to maybe.
But the chamber did get melted, so.
It did.
Suck it, Ryan.
What is your next one?
So, I think it's funny because they actually talk about this in a plot in the MCU, is that a lot of their fights lead to destruction, lives lost. I mean, the whole plot of Civil War is whether they should be responsible for that or whether they should continue fighting.
Yeah.
But I do think for the most part, most of the villains in most of the MCU movies are trying to do something that would kill a lot more people. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, it's literally all personal.
Yeah.
So in the end fight, when Victor is trying to kill the 4 of them and they stop him, there's a big celebration. They have a party for saving the city. And I'm thinking, well, they kind of created the problem and they also stopped the problem. But I don't think they should get a parade or a party for that.
It shouldn't say, congratulations, Fantastic Four. It should say, well, you cleaned up your own mess.
Sort of. I mean, there was still a lot of destruction. Nobody died, but that we know of. Why are you congratulating them? They didn't save anybody. They didn't even try to, like, clear the street when they were having the fight.
That's true.
They just were...
It's like, we'll fight around them.
They're the most self-centered superheroes I've ever met. I mean, they did save some people on the bridge, but...
Yeah.
Again, that was a mess that they made, technically.
Yeah. I mean, it was people, a guy trying to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And the Thing tries to help him.
And then it just snowballs into this horrible, crazy clusterfuck of action. Is all I can say. Did you have anything else?
It was kind of not really a plot hole, or more of a continuity error, I guess you would say. When Johnny decides to go compete in the X Games, he gets in a Porsche and starts driving to the stadium. But his license plate says torched.
Scorched.
Or whatever.
Or does it say torched?
I thought it said torched. And I'm going, how did you already get a vanity plate?
Maybe he already had that because he's that big of a douchebag.
He's that big of a D-bag.
Was that the only one you had?
Yes.
Or I guess the last one that you had?
The last one.
What was your funniest line or moment?
It was a scene that it's not intended to be funny, but Reed is kind of wrestling with Ben and trying to restrain him, and he's doing, the Mr. Fantastic thing, so he's wrapping elastically around Ben, but the facial expressions that Reed is making while he's doing it looked like almost Three Stooge-like.
Yeah.
It was so cheesy and silly and over the top.
I feel like when I see stuff where they have to use CGI, I just think of how it probably looked while they were recording it.
Yes.
And how stupid I would feel if I was them having to pretend now pretend your arm is wrapped like this. And
they're going like, hey, Ian, what you going to do? Just stand behind Michael and now picture in your head you have your arms wrapped around him 17 times. And the guy's going, okay.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know how to do this, but all right.
There was a couple times where I laughed at this movie, but I think it was just kind of funny when they realize they have powers. They're still in the hospital / compound, who knows where. And they go to Ben's room to check on him. It's locked. So Reed uses his power to unlock the door, and when he pulls it back, and Johnny's just like, that's gross. I just thought it was funny. That's gross. What was your cringiest?
I think these parts were supposed to be kind of funny, but it was any interaction with Johnny and the nurse telling him, you're hot. And he's like, thank you. You're on fire. Oh, you're pretty. You're not bad yourself. And it's just so cheesy.
I had that exact moment. They were on the ski hill, and Johnny starts lighting on fire, and she yells to him, you're on fire. And he's like, thanks, you're pretty good too. She's like, no, you're literally on fire. And then just that whole scene after where he flies, he crashes into the snow, it makes the little hot tub, which I'm thinking, if you're really hot, then wouldn't it also melt a lot more snow? But anyway, again, not very good at the whole continuity thing.
Yes.
And then so he's just sitting there naked in this hot tub, and he's like, care to join? And then it just like shows a view through her legs, and she drops her what are those called? Her sticks, her
ski
poles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this, Van Wilder? Like, what's going on?
Like, yeah, that makes sense. And he's boiling hot.
you're just discovering that this happened. And if I was the nurse, I'd be like, no, we need to get you back.
You're going to burn yourself.
Yeah.
He's literally in a boiling pot of water.
Well, you're just assuming they had sex.
She dropped her poles to get in there with him.
Maybe she was cold.
Into boiling water. Maybe she was cold, I guess. Yeah, that could work.
Good times.
Uh,
So I have some additional notes, I think.
I do as well.
Okay.
I'm kind of I guess you would call me a stadium nerd. Like I'm like the architecture of them, and I always notice them in movies. I always can immediately place said stadium. And this movie's in New York, and when Johnny goes to compete at the X Games, it is the Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's annoying. It just bothers me. I know.
But honestly, I think that's something that I feel like the movie industry tries to get away with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think over the years, people have gotten smarter, or now we have a platform where we can literally share, like, this. I watched this movie and they totally tried to play it off like this place is actually this place. But I feel like before they were like, the audience won't. The audience is so dumb they won't notice. And you're like, no, we notice everything.
Stadium nerds notice.
I think I'm going to save some of these notes for when we give our awards out because it kind of plays into my decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to talk about Debbie and how much of a bitch she is. Because
absolutely.
I get it. Logistically, I don't know how a relationship would work with him. I mean, doesn't seem to be a problem for his new girlfriend. But
I'm just thinking, here's a joke. He wouldn't have any trouble getting hard.
Gross.
Oh!
No. Gross.
Gross.
Gross. But just so quickly how she's just like, first of all, the minute she sees him in the street, she runs away.
Yes.
And I'm like, was she even really the right woman for you if she just was like, ugh?
She was so insensitive. At no point did she go, oh my God, what happened to you? We're going to fix you. I love you. It's okay. She ran away instantly.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm out.
And then she sees him on the bridge. She puts her very expensive looking engagement ring on the ground, which the dude has fingers that are super duper big.
Mm-hmm.
He can't grasp that.
Yeah.
You dick.
Why didn't you just throw it into the Hudson River, you bitch?
Yeah. Ya bitch.
Ya bitch.
Yeah. I was just like, at least, they could have made it so that she would try to stay with him and then there's like an adjustment period and then she decides like, this is not for me. I can't do this.
Yeah.
But it was like right off the bat, like, oh, you're not a human anymore. Gross.
Correct.
I'm out. What was your next one you wanted to talk about?
My next one is, and this I kind of thought of, again, Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man, is when Dr. Doom has his mask on, he essentially has to do the same thing Willem Dafoe did, which was act with his eyes. But also I thought it was weird. His whole mouth is covered and everything, but they did nothing, or I shouldn't say nothing, next to nothing to alter Julian McMahon's voice or make it sound muffled, make him sound
a little
sinister.
More devious.
Yeah. Nothing.
Which is funny because I feel like with Ben turning into the Thing,
they did.
His voice was definitely deeper and
Absolutely. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made it less believable as a villain. And I did like his transition. It's funny that you pointed out that it did remind me of Willem Dafoe's character in Spider-Man because he just slowly gets crazier and crazier and transitions into this psychopath. But
when you mentioned earlier when he claims he's going to get a second opinion, he has the stereotypical look of a villain. His hair instantly becomes somewhat spiky and crazy.
He gets those crazy eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually the last thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, there was a point in the movie. This movie, again, we're very confused on what's going on. It's an origin story, but there's not really like a driving force of Dr. Doom is evil and they have to stop him. They don't even notice that he's evil until the very end.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's no climax, or not even climax. What's the word I'm thinking of? Where they have like hardships, like where they have conflict. That's the word. I'm like, in writing you have conflict. I feel like there's no conflict really.
No. It accelerates from 0 to 60 real quick.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now he is mad.
But in the middle of the movie, there's a montage of just sitcom-like hijinks while they're all living in the apartment, in Reed's apartment, where Reed walks in on Sue naked, and then she turns invisible, and then Johnny plays the old shaving cream trick on Ben. I was surprised there was no laugh track.
That is so true.
It was pretty cheesy.
Yeah. That was bad.
That was my last one I really wanted to discuss.
I had one last one when Victor was like, why would it wasn't Victor.
It was Leonard.
Leonard asked, why would anybody pick Sue? And your response was, I don't know. She's smart and beautiful. Sounds awful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's questioning why Victor likes her.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this. I guess let's just go on to our awards so we can get into this now.
Blah, blah, blah. Award season here on Ruining Our Childhood. Blah, blah, blah. We give out 2 awards.
Are you saying blah, blah, blah? You're just saying what you usually say, but putting
I was
blah,
like,
blah,
award
blah.
season. First of which is a valedictorian to the Nicolas Cage Online School of Bad Acting. Who did you give your award to?
I gave mine to Julian McMahon.
Okay.
Because it was a really hard decision, because I don't think the acting was so bad, but I think the dialogue and the plot and the characters were not as likable as they probably should have been. But I gave it to him because, I mean, he is known for playing villains.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't a nice person in Nip Tuck. He played a demon in Charmed, and he played the villain in The Runaways. So he's known to do that, and he's pretty good at it. But I just felt like he wasn't believable. Like you said, when he put on the mask, he didn't sound devious. He just sounded like himself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was an acting choice or if that's just how the director wanted it. I don't know. He had some of the cheesier lines. Like, he asks Reed, why the long face? Which I'm like, are you trying to steal Joker's? Like, why so serious?
Yeah.
But you're like, I don't want to get sued.
Although, this came out before.
That's true.
When he said it to him, his face wasn't long. That's what I was thinking. His body was long, but his face was normal.
And then he would call Susan, but this is my whole thing. So it's kind of confusing. They mention a couple times whether Susan or Sue and him are a thing. Mm-hmm. They're dating. She works for him, obviously. Obviously. And to the point where he's going to propose to her. So in the beginning of the movie, I'm like, okay, they're together. But they don't show romantic. They don't kiss. They don't hold hands. They don't do anything like that. At one point, he puts his arm around her at the very beginning. That's it. Then later in the movie, Sue tells Reed that they're not together. They've never been together. So they're having like a moment about their own relationship. So this guy, her boss, is going to literally propose to her when they're not together. So he's in a power position, taking advantage of her, his subordinate.
What a creep.
Which does not fly in 2020, I'll tell you that. And
you said it like it happened to you. I'll tell you that.
You don't know.
I do.
The best part is when he proposed, he starts to propose because it's like right before the explosion happens, they get their powers. He says, think of it as a promotion.
Oh, wow.
He is the worst.
Well, that's how Trump got his wives. It's a promotion.
Jesus. So, yeah. I also feel like he's not a real villain because he never announced really that he's gonna like rule the world with his new power. He had a little bit of a speech to Ben once he changes Ben back to human. But he doesn't really like say, I'm gonna have world domination on my plate. He just was like
very meh. Touche.
And also a villain. But not a great villain.
No.
I don't know where I'm going with this. That's who I chose. Who did you choose?
I gave it to his would-be fiance, Jessica Alba, as Sue Storm. I feel like the character was set up to fail the minute you see her. Her look is terrible. She's almost glowing. because of how much pancake makeup they have on her. So I feel like the character's off to a rough start. All of her interactions, I feel like she's overacting. They're like, act like Johnny's your brother. It was very cringy watching those parts. It was, those ports. Yeah. But the whole time you were talking about Julian McMahon, I was going, oh, he was actually worse. And it was hard to pick a worse because there was so much bad acting in this movie.
I agree.
It's rough.
For sure. She was definitely one of the ones I was considering, just because I felt like her character was very underutilized. At one point, like we said in the bridge scene where she gets undressed, I still don't know why she had to get undressed, where she went. They don't show her passing people.
No.
But all of a sudden, Johnny and Reed are with her, so I'm like, why did she have to take her clothes off? I'm confused.
It was very confusing.
Yeah. But I agree. I didn't believe her and Johnny were brother and sister.
No.
They didn't have any chemistry in that way.
I also feel like there was no writing to develop any chemistry between the two of them. It's just bad.
Yeah, she was bad. Mm-hmm. Just as bad. Do you want to move on?
Yeah.
The Thomas J. Hanks Award for Exceptional Acting. Who did you give yours to?
It's not that I felt his acting was Tom Hanks level and carries this movie, but I thought Chris Evans was the only person that had any charm to him. Yeah, he's over the top and cheesy at times, and we described him as a mid-2000s douchebag, but he, I think, is the only redeeming quality that the movie has in 3 seconds of Kerry Washington. The rest of this movie, it's just bad.
Do you feel like we're a little biased because we are talking about Captain America?
No, I felt like he had some charm to him, whereas I felt like Ian Gruffold, or however you say his name, was very forgettable.
Yeah.
There's
I agree.
Nothing there.
I gave mine to Chris Evans as well. I almost gave it to Michael Chiklis because I felt like out of the 4 characters, if I was basing it on the characters alone, I felt like he had the best story.
Yes.
Because he had to deal with major physical changes, a girlfriend leaving him.
Yeah.
And just making that decision to stay the same or go back to being like human form.
Whereas our boy Chris Evans is just like, hey, I can catch on fire. This is fucking cool. Doesn't struggle with it at all.
Right. I think the reason I did pick Chris Evans was, like you said, he was the most charming. He had the funnier lines, I would say, and he pulled them off well. Also, if you just think of how different Johnny is to Steve Rogers. Yeah. So there's a lot of acting there in the sense that Johnny is this really big douchebag. I mean, he's really self-centered. Mm-hmm. He's got an ego, and it's like the complete opposite of Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Who, is an actual true hero who, not to say that Johnny isn't a hero, but he, he's humble. And so I'm like, this same actor is playing both of those parts well. So it did kind of bias me a little knowing that he was Captain America, but because he pulled off this character so well too, who is the exact opposite of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, because Steve's humble and yeah. Later on, he becomes kind of cocky.
Well, I think, but he also grew up in an era where you're not as cocky.
Yeah.
You're not as self-centered.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I was kind of curious, the timeline. He played Johnny last in 2007, and then 4 years later, it's a complete change as him as Steve Rogers.
Yeah. I remember people didn't want him to play him because they're like, you can't have the same actor play 2 different Marvel characters.
Yeah. And then ironically, we had Michael B. Jordan play the Human Torch and then Killmonger.
Yeah.
And I did see, which I do not agree with, I saw this today, the rumored person for Wolverine is Henry Cavill. I'm not a fan.
I've never been a fan either.
I don't want you... Also, I don't like the crossing between DC and Marvel.
This is what we need to do, guys. We need to find the Fountain of Youth.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to Hugh Jackman. Only. Then we'll be good.
Only Hugh Jackman. Yeah. He's the only one that gets it. Because I'm thinking Hugh Jackman could still play him.
Oh, I'm sure he could, for sure. But I get why he doesn't want to.
I've seen interviews where he talks about the body transformation is getting a little rough at the age he's at.
And he's stuck with it through the good and the really bad. So I get it.
I get it too. That's a movie we need to do. Is we need to do one of the X-Men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark it down, guys. Whoever's making a list for us.
Yes. Boom. One of the X-Men. But yeah, Chris Evans redeemed a little bit this movie, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not a great movie. And I do put it on par. I guess we can move on to does this movie hold up? And it's just on par with the first Spider-Man, which was good in theory. It was good when it was made, but now it's almost too cheesy. And I think people thought comic book movies just had to be super cheesy.
Yeah.
To keep that comic book way about it, but
because I would say it's around this time where they kind of make a transition, and I felt like that transition was with Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Where they said we can go dark with these movies and make them a little more serious. Yeah, and realistic, which ironically was the same year as this. And I feel like at that point they made a conscious effort, and Marvel followed suit and made that transition too. Whereas this is almost like the dying of the original run of comic book movies.
Or the sequel.
The sequel. Yeah, that's a good point. Or, I don't know, we did watch X-Men Dark Phoenix this past summer, and it was pretty bad.
But it wasn't bad in the same way.
No, it was just a bad movie.
I mean, the plot and character development of the person that you name the movie after, not great.
No.
Not great.
Not great, folks.
I did want to say that I felt like this movie had all the bad parts of today's Marvel movies where people make, like I said earlier, make fun of like the science-y jargon that doesn't actually make any sense, but they make it sound cool or whatever. But none of the actual good parts of Marvel movies other than Chris Evans. Especially with the situations and destruction that they create and never have really real consequences for.
Yeah.
And they never struggled with their powers. Their powers worked very conveniently for them.
The only one was Chickless.
Yeah.
Everybody else was like, yeah, cool. Like you said at one point, it was a 1990s sitcom in there.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun.
Yeah. So, another one in the books for
not very good.
Yeah. And we kind of called it before, so.
We did.
What can you do?
That's why we should, we'll have to at some point do Batman Begins or one of the other ones that made the transition into what we consider awesome superhero movies and see if those actually hold up, because we were kind of pretty sure this was not going to hold up.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably do that.
Yeah, at some point.
So, thanks for listening, guys. As always, check out our social media if you'd like. If you don't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't force you. I'm not your mom. At Instagram at Ruining Our Childhood.
Over on Facebook at Ruining Our Childhood.
And Twitter at ROC Movie Podcast.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to bring back the poll this week, maybe?
We'll bring back the poll.
Okay.
We just got to think of 2 movies.
I got a couple in my head.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
I wrote them down because I knew I was going to forget them, so.
Also, in 2 weeks, technically? 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
It's going to be our 50th episode, and we're going to do another Q&A. Mm-hmm. If you have not heard our Q&A episode, it's episode 20. We did a Q&A. Mm-hmm. And if you want to send us a question, you can send it to ruiningourchildhood@gmail.com
mm-hmm.
or DM us on Instagram or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And just give us your question.
Definitely. Or even throw it in the comments on one of our this week's post, whatever. Just reach out to us.
Unless you want privacy, then DM
touche.
us.
Yeah. If you don't want people to know, that's fine.
Yeah.
We respect your privacy.
And it can be about anything.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be movie related.
Yeah. We like questions.
Yeah.
Send us your questions. Send them to us.
Send me your questions.
So, anyway, guys, we should get out of here because we've been talking for way too long.
We will see you guys next week.
Or hear you?
That's true. You're not going to see us. You'll hear us next week.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. We're going to have to end it like that every week now.